start with introductions? Oh, there we go.
Yep, we are ready.
Wonderful. So you go ahead and go to slide 3. We have 5 people officially on the RAC committee. I know we also have a number of interested parties here, and all of you will be able to provide input and ask questions during the public comment period towards the end of this meeting. But first, I would like to start with introductions of our committee, and we'll just go in alphabetical order by first name. Antoinette, go ahead.
Hello, good morning. My name is Antoinette Iwachi, and I'm the Senior Public and Regulatory Affairs Specialist for Cambia Health, also known as Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oregon.
Thank you, Antoinette. Thanks for being here. Dan, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dan Shelp. I'm Chief Regulatory Counsel for the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, the NAIC. We're the organization that coordinates with the state's insurance commissioners and chief regulatory officers with respect to the regulation of the insurance industry.
Great. Thank you, Dan. John, go ahead, please.
Thanks so much. My name is John Mangan, and I'm Vice President and Deputy of State Relations for the American Council of Life Insurers, a national trade association of about 280 companies. 240 or so are licensed in Oregon, including our domestic leader, the Standard, but there are others, and we're very grateful to be involved today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Nia, go ahead. Are you on?
Nia is actually not here. Nia is an intern with Oregon Consumer Justice, but could not come, so I am here in her place. I'm Angela Donnelly. I'm the State Policy Director for Oregon Consumer Justice.
Thank you so much for being here, Angela. And rounding us out, Ryan, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm Ryan Chifo. I'm the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs for the Standard.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for participating in this. And I know many of you have participated during the bill process, the legislative process. So really appreciate you continuing your involvement. You can go to the next slide, Karen. So just housekeeping, everybody is doing this already. You can feel we're a small group today, so a lot of times these are larger, but feel free to have your video off and your line muted. You can go ahead and raise your hands to speak, and feel free to use the chat. And like I've mentioned before, we do have time reserved for public comment at the end, and we will request your written comments as well, in addition to the comments that you make today about the draft rules. You can go to the next slide. So just a very brief rulemaking overview. So what rules are? They're any agency directive, standard, regulation, statement of general applicability that implements, interprets, or prescribes law or policy. And it does have the weight of law and needs to be consistent with statute. And so really the role of the Rulemaking Advisory Committee is to represent the interests of those affected by the rule and provide advice and recommendations to the division. So Karen is really the expert in our adoption process. We'll have a notice, public comment period, and then finally a public hearing. So this is really the kind of one of the first steps in the process. We could go next to the background for these specific rule revisions. So as many of you are aware, the NAIC updated its accreditation standards as it does from time to time. And the ones that we're talking about today are models number 440 and 450. And this is really about making sure that state insurance departments meet baseline standards of solvency regulation, which allows non-domestic states to coordinate and rely on the work of other accredited regulators. So this is really important to maintaining Oregon's accreditation standards. We must adopt these new requirements by January 1st, 2026 to maintain our accreditation. And last I checked, which was, I believe, last week, 46 jurisdictions have adopted the new accreditation laws, and 24 have adopted the new accreditation regulations, which we are working on today. So, if there aren't, I'll pause to see if there are any questions about the background or our processes, and then we'll move into discussion of the rules, the draft rules themselves. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised or anybody coming off mute. So let's go ahead and get into it. So these are changes, and Karen, you can go ahead and bring up the PDF of the draft rules. And like I mentioned in the email, yes, perfect. How I did this for kind of the bulk of them, not the ones you see in front of you, but the 0150, is I copied the NAIC model regulation, and then I made track changes to those. So this is not how it will appear in the official filings. It would all be new language, but I wanted to make sure that for the bulk of it, people were seeing the changes we are making from the underlying model. So I'll just start there. And that was, for some context, but with what you're seeing right now under the definitions, we're adding group capital calculation as is required by the statute. And we're also adding under 3 a definition of liquidity stress test framework. And the reason number 3, the liquidity stress test, looks a little bit different and is not a definition per se exactly, is because there are no other rules about the LST, the liquidity stress test. But in the statute that was passed, Senate Bill 831, it did require that we define this term in rule. So this is the definition in rule, but it's not referenced anywhere else in rule. So that's why it looks a little bit different. And I'll just pause to see if people have questions or concerns about these 2 changes to the definition section. Ryan, please go ahead. Oh, you're on mute still.
Sorry about that. Just a question about the definition of the group capital calculation.
Yeah.
There's no specifics on the periodic basis for, kind of tying into the NAIC instructions. Is that, I guess the question is, if DFR isn't sort of quick to reference a new edition of the instructions, what are we left to sort of reference for the appropriate instructions for a particular year's GCC?
So let me look at this again. So you're saying if we don't update it in a timely way on our website, kind of what is industry supposed to refer to?
Yeah. So in case there's a lag between, if DFR references I think the existing instructions are from 2023. If the NAIC issues a 2026 edition, but DFR doesn't update the website, is there, and I don't know what kind of substantive changes there might be, but right, are the 2026 instructions or the 2023 instructions in that scenario controlling?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think from a practical standpoint, that would be something, if we haven't updated something in a timely manner and you're in the process, the standards in the process of doing the group capital calculations, like, hey, there's this discrepancy, I would hope, you would tell us that, and then we would get it updated really quickly. So there wouldn't actually be a practical, discrepancy.
Right.
But I see what you're saying. Just looking at the exact language again.
And maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I mean, I suppose the periodic, prescription could just be the most recent instructions. I don't know exactly how it'll play out. I just want to make sure that,
Yeah.
you know, if I get the question from our folks as they're digging into details, that you know, we have a mechanism to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think, Dan, go ahead. You can jump in.
Yeah, and I don't know, I would just tell you the NAIC's perspective on this from an accreditation perspective. We would expect Oregon to update its reference to the prescribing the instructions when the NAIC changes the instructions. So from our perspective, we would expect you to be doing that. That's something we would probably be checking on an accreditation review. This is not the first state that has done this, kind of separating itself a little bit from an NAIC publication. It won't be the last state either. It's something that we're well used to, but we would expect you to be deferring to be referencing the current instructions for the group capital calculation.
Yeah. And I mean, that is certainly our intent, I will say too. And I do recognize, Ryan, that, you know, we do have a lot of website to maintain, and that, you know, something like that could occur potentially. I would hope it wouldn't, especially since it, you know, like Dan is saying, it would be part of the an accreditation review of Oregon. Antoinette, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I see exactly what Ryan is saying, because there have been situations where with other sort of reporting requirements, not so much accreditation, that we've been in that situation. So I think that, and I know the DFR right now, I mean, you guys have a lot on your plate. Sometimes it's a courier that knows of it because they have a representative that attends also the NAIC meetings, and they know that it's been updated. But then we have not heard anything from the DFR, you know. In that moment, you know, when we know before the DFR updates, is there a process, or I guess this is more of a takeaway for the DFR for internal discussion, where if we're aware that it has changed, but then we have not heard anything from the DFR. Is this the opportunity where you can give somewhat of like a written approval by email that, yeah, here's the recent calculation, please move forward, and then we will update our website as soon as possible? Can that be done operationally? Does that make sense?
You know, I see what you're saying. That's not something that I would write in the rule here. And it's not something that, you know, because this is also, it's not a, you know, it's not just a simple formula. It's the whole instructions from NAIC, which are robust and expansive. So, you know, I don't think that's something we would just like email a formula. But I think certainly you have multiple venues. If you do notice that we are out of sync with something, to let us know, and then we can update that in hopefully a very timely fashion. So what I want to do with this kind of issue is I'm not anticipating a change to the rule, because these, you know, this is kind of operationally how we write rules, and we don't want to add in, you know, a lot of caveats to that, because this is the standard that we're holding ourselves to as well. But what I can do is think about this operationally. And, you know, Antoinette, I totally recognize that sometimes things do not get updated on our website in the most timely fashion. I will say that in terms of accreditation, that is something that we take very seriously. And, you know, it's also something that would not catch us by surprise, I think, if the group capital calculation instructions were updated. You know, it's not like they're happening monthly. The last one is from 2023. So I don't foresee an issue, but I do appreciate bringing it up. And that's something that I can talk internally with folks about, you know, kind of the operational processes behind it. Does that feel satisfactory, Ryan and Antoinette?
Yeah,
Yeah,
For me.
absolutely. Yeah, no need for a rule change. Sorry, just
Oh,
maybe something
no,
for
and I
visibility.
truly do
Yep.
appreciate the, kind of bringing up the practical implications too. Yeah. Any thoughts about the liquidity stress test framework piece of this definition section? Okay, not seeing any. Let's move down to the next portion of the rules, please, Karen. Great. Okay, so this starting here is that portion where all of this would be new in rules, so it would all be redlined. And again, what I have done is just copied in what the model regulations are from NAIC, and the red lines are the changes, the things that would be different for Oregon. And first, I will just note kind of the major difference, which you can see right at the top. You can see this is consistent with the bill, SB 831. Working with Legislative Council, we needed to change the terminology from lead state commissioner to chief insurance regulatory official because that terminology was already in statute. There is not a different meaning. And we have discussed this with Dan and others from NAIC. So I just want to note that that looks like a big difference. Substantively, it is not. And it is being consistent with underlying statute. You can scroll down, Karen, just slowly so we can look at any other changes. Can keep going. I would say the biggest thing here that I would love for people to look at closely is to make sure that our references are correct and inclusive. You can keep scrolling down. Yeah, so I'll just stop there. So, I mean, the way I see it is our major change is the changing lead state commissioner to chief insurance regulatory official, and then updating all of the references to be Oregon specific references. And I'll open it up there to questions, concerns, comments on this portion. Yeah, Ryan.
Thanks. I think I know the answer to this already, but I just want to say it out loud and
Yeah.
hear it and make sure I'm thinking about this the right way. So substantively, the bulk of these new regulations are really about defining the scope of exemptions from the group capital calculation.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure, because there's pretty significant discretion for the director, for the commissioner in the law itself. It's going to be the new, it's 732.569(2). So there's a good bit of discretion there for defining the scope and whether at what level the GCC happens. And so I just want to make sure that by writing a rule that articulates certain scenarios for exemption, that doesn't take away any of the director's discretion for how to apply the group capital calculation in a particular year or to a particular entity, if it isn't specifically in alignment with these rules. So a lot like a scope change isn't off the table just because it's not defined in rule where there are other exemption criteria or things like that. Does the question make sense?
I think it does. I think and Dan, I'll let you jump in next, but I think what you're saying to kind of recap is there is discretion in the underlying law that was just passed, and you're wanting to make sure that this rule does not narrow that discretion unnecessarily. But I think that's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. Yeah, just because the
Okay.
rule addresses some of
Portions.
the portions of choices that the director can make, or sort of
Mhm.
outcomes, I guess, on what the GCC might look like for a particular company in a particular year.
Mhm.
That doesn't limit the rest of the director's discretion just because there might be other scope, decisions that the director might make that aren't articulated here in the rule.
Dan, I'm going to let you go next. I'm going to look back at the bill for a
Yeah,
second.
I would just agree with that statement, that what this regulation does is that in the statute itself, it says that these exemptions will be described by the commissioner in regulations. What these regulations do are basically describing those exemptions. When you talk about scope, that's a little bit different. That's a little bit different thing, and that's within the discretion of the commissioner or the director in this instance, on reviewing that. So that's, I would refer to that as kind of two separate issues.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's sort of that's what we would have expected, and I think that's how it reads. I just want to make sure, while we have the forum to call it out. So that makes perfect sense. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Ryan.
Yep.
And Dan for your response. Are there other questions, comments, concerns about this portion? Okay, not hearing any. Let's go ahead and move to this next section, so this section is an actual, this was an existing rule, 0160, and these are edits that were in the changes to the model regulation number 450. So they don't, explicitly relate to the group capital calculation and liquidity stress test, but they are, they were passed in that model regulation, and we wanted to be as up to date as possible since we have these rules open. So these are really, some kind of changes. Can you scroll up just a little bit, Karen? Sorry, to show the other direction. Sorry. Perfect. About kind of data sharing, and just updating that. And, I should know when these were last updated. We can know that by scrolling down. But I think, as technology is changing, I think these are especially good things to update. So again, these, was it 2016 or 93, 2016? Oh, 2020. Gotcha.
2020 was the last update.
Okay. Not sure how. I should have gone back to look to see how extensive that was, and I haven't done that. But if you scroll up, these are directly taken from the model regulation by the NAIC. Are there questions about or concerns about these changes? It's really about information sharing. Okay, I'm not hearing any. And those are the totality of the rules that we're here to discuss today. So I'll just pause for another minute to see if RAC members have any additional comments or topics they want to bring up. And also rest assured, this is just your first opportunity. It's not the last. There are many other avenues after the RAC, including written comment after the RAC, and then also at the final hearing as well. So I'll just pause for a moment. Okay, not hearing anything. Let's go ahead and move. I know we have some interested parties here. Move to the public comment period. And I welcome any public comments, feedback, questions from anyone else. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Merlene Converse from Kaiser Permanente, and I had a general question. As we reviewed the draft regulation, we didn't see any indication of when the first submission would be due, and we didn't know if the DFR would be posting that on the website instructions with the first due date. We tend honestly to have a preference for the timing of it to be when we do our own risk solvency assessment reporting, just because we'd be kind of looking at the same pieces of data when we're doing that. And so we were just hoping that the DFR could consider the timing of the initial submission and learn more about how that would be communicated to carriers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Again, like practical implementation question. And most of our folks on the insurance institutions team are at a conference right now. So I'm not sure if anyone is on who's able to talk about that, but I do know, Ryan, I know you and I had emailed about this, and I'm going to try to pull up that email because I don't want to misspeak. Ryan, I'm assuming you don't remember off the top of your head.
I wasn't going to say anything because no, I don't.
Okay, let me see if I can find that email so I don't give you incorrect information. Bear with me for a minute. Yeah. And while I look at that, I will say, that is something that we can communicate more broadly as well.
So Lily, so I understand. So you will send that information to the RAC and interested parties after the meeting?
Oh, no, I was looking for that right now.
Okay.
I would just share since we're okay on time.
For some reason, I think in a prior communication, I thought it would be for 2027 reporting or calculation.
That's right. I did communicate it with you as well. I remember that now. Okay, here we go. So I have spoken with the insurance institution managers, and companies will need to implement the requirement within their, end of 2026 filing that would be submitted in 2027. I don't, they haven't talked about exact due dates yet, but I do. Oh, Teresa, go ahead. Didn't see you there.
Yeah, she mentioned.
Oh, you're quite quiet.
Okay, let me see if I can turn. That better? Is that better?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm working from home.
Yeah,
The ORSA filing is due August 1st, and then I would assume that we would put that due date and everything in the annual statement instructions that you can download from the website. They can maybe consider, because this is new, to send out some sort of a bulletin to the insurers as well.
Thank you, Teresa. Really, does that help?
That helps very much. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for that practical question. I'm glad you were on, Teresa. Thank you. Are there other comments or questions from members of the public and interested parties? Okay, I was like waiting a little longer than is comfortable to give people a chance to think. I'm not hearing any other questions or comments. So let's go ahead and go to next steps on the PowerPoint slide. So this is going to be the only RAC meeting. But there are a number of other kind of time periods. So we would like your final written RAC comments to us by August 6th. And Karen will be doing the notice of proposed rulemaking on September 1st. We'll have our hearing on September 22nd, which depending on schedules may or may not be led by me. And then public comments will be due at the end of September, and our permanent rulemaking will be filed October 27th. And you will notice, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but even though we have a lot of rulemakings right now and a lot that are due by the new year, so these will be filed early, but I believe they will not be effective until January 1st. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great.
Yes.
Great. Dan, go ahead.
With respect to the comments, are you expecting a comment from the NAIC, or only submit a comment if we have an actual comment?
Great question. I will confirm, but I think it's whatever folks are comfortable with. If they want to be on the record as, noting something specific like Ryan, you have, totally welcome that. But in terms of the NAIC, let me double check on that, Dan. Right now I'm not expecting.
I'll just officially say that I'm fine from an accreditation perspective with going forward with this regulation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there other questions about the next steps? You can also see how to get in touch with me and Karen if you didn't know already. Okay. Thank you all so much for your time and for wading into this, technical and wonky issue, but very important one. Really appreciate everybody's time and commitment to this. And with that, I think we can close this RAC meeting quite early, give you all some time back.